My name is Harper Wilson. At 32 years old, I never expected to become invisible to my own family. 6 months ago, I packed up my Chicago apartment. I moved across the country to Seattle for my dream job as a senior software designer. Not a single family member noticed I was gone. Not one call. Not one text. That changed yesterday when my father suddenly called. He demanded I fly back for my brother Jacob's wedding. He needs his perfect family portrait complete. If you're watching this from somewhere your family undervalues you, drop a comment telling me where you are. Hit that like button and subscribe to join others who understand what it means to be the forgotten child. Growing up in our sprawling mansion in Chicago's North Shore, I should have had the perfect childhood. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect American family. My father, Richard Wilson, was a high-powered corporate attorney who made partner by 35. My mother, Diana, was a renowned cardiovascular surgeon at Northwestern Memorial. Our family had wealth, status, and connections throughout the city. What we lacked was warmth. From my earliest memories, I was always an afterthought in my parents' lives. My brother, Jacob, 2 years younger, somehow became the sun around which our family orbited. He was their miracle baby, born after what my mother called complications, though she never explained what those were. Jacob had the charming smile, the natural athletic ability, and the easy confidence that made him the favorite of everyone he met. I still remember my 8th birthday party. My parents had promised something special, but when the day came, my father was called away for an emergency with a client. My mother was stuck in surgery. The housekeeper, Mrs. Jenkins, bought a small cake from the grocery store. She sang happy birthday to me alone. 2 weeks later, for Jacob's 6th birthday, they rented out the entire local amusement park. They invited 50 kids and hired a popular children's television host to make an appearance. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. My straight A's were expected and barely acknowledged. Jacob's B- grades were celebrated with dinners out and new video games as rewards for his improvement. When I won the state science fair in 10th grade, my parents were at Jacob's basketball game. I took the bus home alone with my trophy. Meanwhile, they took him for ice cream to console him for losing the game. College was supposed to be my escape. I worked harder than anyone in my class. I earned a full scholarship to MIT for computer science. The day I received my acceptance letter, I ran home bursting with excitement. My parents were hosting a dinner party for potential clients. When I tried to share my news, my mother pulled me aside. "Harper, not now. These people are very important to your father. Why don't you go up to your room and do your homework?" "But Mom, I got into MIT with a full scholarship," I whispered. She gave me a distracted nod. "That's nice, honey. We expected you would. Could you please ask Mrs. Jenkins to bring out more wine for our guests?" I was 18. I had just achieved something incredible, and I was being asked to play servant at my parents' business dinner. The worst moment came during my sophomore year at college. I had been selected for a prestigious undergraduate research award. Only 5 students in the country received it. The ceremony was on a Saturday. For once, my parents promised they would be there. I reserved them front row seats. As I scanned the audience before going on stage, I saw 2 empty chairs where they should have been. After the ceremony, I had 3 missed calls from my mother. Jacob had a regional swimming meet that was rescheduled to the same day. They decided his high school sports event was more important than my national academic recognition. When my mother fell ill with pneumonia during my junior year, I was asked to take a semester off to help at home. Not Jacob, who was attending college locally. Me, who was halfway across the country maintaining a perfect GPA. I complied because that's what good daughters do. That semester turned into a year. By the time I returned to school, I had lost my research position and my momentum. To pay my way through the rest of college, I took coding jobs and worked at the campus IT department. I learned to be completely self-sufficient. After graduation, I tried to maintain a relationship with my family. I would return to Chicago for major holidays. I sat quietly at the dinner table while everyone celebrated Jacob's latest achievements. If I tried to talk about my job or my life, the conversation quickly shifted back to more interesting topics, like my brother's new girlfriend or my father's latest high-profile case. Christmas 2 years ago was the breaking point. I had just been promoted to lead developer at my company, a major achievement in my field. As we sat around the dinner table, my mother turned to me and said, "Harper, you're so quiet. Are you still doing that computer thing? Have you thought about going back to school for something more suitable? More suitable than my six-figure salary job creating software used by millions of people?" I asked. My father chuckled. "Your mother just means something more sociable. You always were better with machines than people." I looked around the table and realized they had no idea who I was. They had created a narrative about me as the socially awkward, less successful child. No achievement of mine would change that story. So I stopped trying. My move to Seattle 6 months ago marked the beginning of my real life. After accepting the position as senior product designer at Horizon Technologies, one of the fastest growing tech companies in the country, I found a luxury apartment in Capitol Hill. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Each morning, I wake up to the sight of ferries gliding across the water. The distant Olympic mountains are framed in my bedroom window. The salary package Horizon offered was beyond generous. My base compensation was twice what I had been making in Chicago. With stock options and performance bonuses, it could potentially double that amount. For the first time in my life, I felt my work was truly valued. My new colleagues quickly became friends. My team lead Marcus immediately recognized my skills. He gave me the freedom to shape our newest product line. Within 2 months, I was asked to present my vision for our consumer app to the executive board. When they approved my proposal with enthusiastic praise, Marcus promoted me to Director of User Experience. Outside of work, I discovered a community that embraced me completely. My neighbor Eliza, a free-spirited artist who sells her paintings at Pike Place Market, invited me to a local book club. Through that group, I met Jasmine, a brilliant environmental attorney, and Daniel, a pediatric nurse with the most infectious laugh. The three of them showed me around the city. They took me to hidden coffee shops, secret viewpoints, and neighborhood festivals I never would have found on my own. 3 months after moving, I received an unexpected call from my division VP. My consumer app design had exceeded all projections. It gained 1 million users in its first quarter. The company wanted to create a new department focused on user-centered products with me as its director. The promotion came with a corner office, a team of 15 designers and developers, and a compensation package that made me momentarily dizzy when I saw the numbers. That same week, I found a charming craftsman house in Ballard. It had a view of the Sound and a backyard perfect for Luna, my rescue dog. The real estate market was competitive, but my new salary allowed me to make an offer the sellers couldn't refuse. By month 4, I was a homeowner in one of Seattle's most desirable neighborhoods. With each success, I waited for the urge to call my parents and share my news. Somehow, that urge never came. I realized I had spent my entire life hungry for validation they were incapable of giving. Here in Seattle, surrounded by people who saw and appreciated me for who I actually was, that hunger finally began to subside. 6 months passed without a single call, text, or email from my family. No birthday wishes. No checking if I was alive and well. At first, it stung to realize they truly hadn't noticed my absence. But gradually, that pain transformed into liberation. I had been carrying the weight of their indifference for so long that its absence made me lighter, more confident, more myself. It was a crisp autumn morning when everything changed. I was preparing for a major presentation to our board of directors. The topic was expanding my department internationally. Luna was curled at my feet as I reviewed my slides one last time. My phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months. My father. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. I answered with a neutral "Hello, Dad." "Harper, good I caught you." His voice had that brisk business tone he used when calling clients. "No, how are you?" No acknowledgement of the time that had passed without contact. "I need you to block off the weekend of November 12th. Your brother is getting married." I paused, waiting for more. A question about my life, perhaps. An observation that we hadn't spoken in months. Nothing came. "I see," I finally said. "Congratulations to Jacob." Who's he marrying? Elizabeth Bradford, he said with the distinct note of pride he reserved for Jacob's accomplishments. Bradford Construction. Her father is Thomas Bradford, of course. Of course, I thought. A business alliance disguised as a romance. The Bradfords were Chicago royalty, old money with connections throughout the Midwest. The ceremony will be at the Drake Hotel, he continued. You'll need to be in Chicago by Thursday for the rehearsal dinner. Your mother has selected an appropriate dress for you. Navy blue, conservative. It matches the family aesthetic. Family aesthetic. As if we were a brand rather than people related by blood. Actually, Dad, I won't be able to make it, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. There was a long pause. What do you mean you won't be able to make it? This is your brother's wedding. I have commitments here that I can't break, I said. It wasn't entirely untrue. I had a major product launch the following week. Whatever commitments you have in Chicago can be rescheduled. This is family. I took a deep breath. I'm not in Chicago anymore, Dad. I moved to Seattle 6 months ago. The silence that followed was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight with controlled anger. You moved across the country without telling us? Yes, I said simply. When were you planning to share this information? The irony of his indignation was almost laughable. When were you planning to notice I was gone? I counted. He cleared his throat, clearly thrown off balance. We've all been very busy. Jacob's engagement has taken up a lot of our attention. For 6 months? I wanted to ask, but I held my tongue. Regardless, he continued, recovering quickly. This changes nothing. You'll fly from Seattle instead of driving from wherever you were living in Chicago. I'll have my assistant book your tickets. Dad, I said, I can't make it. I have responsibilities here. What could possibly be more important than your brother's wedding? The Bradfords are expecting to meet our entire family. Thomas Bradford has connections that could be valuable to my firm. This is not just about Jacob. This is about our family's reputation. There it was. The real reason for the call. Not because they missed me or wanted me present for an important life event. Because a potential business partner expected a perfect family portrait. And my absence would raise questions they didn't want to answer. I'm sorry, but I won't be attending, I repeated. Harper Jean Wilson, he said, using my full name as he had when I was a child in trouble. You will be at this wedding. The Bradfords are extremely traditional. Family is everything to them. How would it look if Jacob's only sister refused to attend his wedding? I don't know, Dad. How did it look when neither of my parents attended my college graduation, or my awards ceremony, or any significant event in my life? Another pause. I could practically hear him frantically changing tactics. Those were different circumstances, he said dismissively. This is about supporting your brother on the most important day of his life. I support Jacob finding happiness, I said. I'll send a generous gift, but I won't be there in person. Your mother will be devastated. He tried next, appealing to the guilt that had worked so effectively in the past. Please give her my love, I said, unmoved. He sighed heavily, shifting tactics again. If you're concerned about taking time off work, I can call your supervisor. Where are you working now? Still doing that computer thing. That computer thing. My career, my passion, my source of pride and independence. All reduced to that thing I did because I couldn't succeed at something better. I'm the director of user experience at Horizon Technologies, I said, unable to keep a note of pride from my voice. Never heard of it, he dismissed. Is it a startup? Those things fold overnight, Harper. You should be thinking about stability at your age. I closed my eyes, counting to 10 silently. Horizon is a Fortune 500 company with over 20,000 employees worldwide. And I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Good, he said absently. Now about the wedding. You'll need to arrive looking rested. The photographer wants family photos at 3 on Friday. Don't wear anything flashy. The focus should be on Jacob and Elizabeth. It was as if he hadn't heard a word I'd said. In his mind, I had already acquiesced, as I always had before. Dad, I'm not coming to the wedding. My decision is final. His voice turned cold. Harper, you are part of this family whether you like it or not. You have obligations. If you refuse to fulfill them, there will be consequences. What consequences exactly? I asked, genuinely curious. Your trust fund, for one. The vacation property in Michigan. Your place in this family's legacy. Is your petty rebellion worth throwing all that away? For the first time in our conversation, I laughed. A real, genuine laugh that took both of us by surprise. Dad, I said when I could speak again. I haven't touched my trust fund in years. I make my own money now. Quite a lot of it, actually. This isn't about money, Harper. This is about respect. About honoring your family. No, this is about appearances. About using me as a prop in your perfect family portrait. And I'm done being a properly. I'm very disappointed in you, he said, his voice stern. We'll discuss this further after you've had time to reconsider your priorities. The call ended with my father clearly believing I would eventually give in. He didn't know the woman I had become. The woman who had built a life without their approval or attention. The woman who finally understood her own worth. The days following my father's call brought a deluge of communication from family members. These were the same people who had been perfectly content to ignore my existence for the previous 6 months. My mother called the very next morning. Her voice was tight with what she probably thought was maternal concern. Harper, your father told me about your ridiculous decision. I simply cannot believe you would be so selfish. No hello. No. How have you been? Just straight to my failings as a daughter. Hello to you too, Mom, I said. How have you been these past 6 months? Did you ever wonder where I was or how I was doing? She paused momentarily, thrown off script. We've all been very busy with Jacob's engagement. You know how these things are. The Bradfords are a very prominent family. Yes, Dad mentioned that about 10 times. There's no need for sarcasm, she snapped. This is serious, Harper. Your brother needs his entire family present on his special day. Did Jacob tell you that? Because he hasn't called me in over a year. A few days later, Jacob called himself. His voice carried that forced cheer he used when he wanted something. Sis, long time no talk. How's life in the Windy City? I wouldn't know, I replied. I moved to Seattle 6 months ago. No way. That's awesome. Always knew you were the adventurous one. He laughed, as if we were sharing an inside joke, as if we had the kind of relationship where such things existed. Mom and Dad said you're being difficult about the wedding. He continued, switching tactics with impressive speed. Come on, Harper. I need my big sister there. Remember how you used to look out for me when we were kids? We've always been such good friends, haven't we? You always helped me with my homework, and when I was feeling down, you cheered me up. You were the best big sister I could have had. It was an incredible rewriting of history. I remembered being asked to sacrifice my own events to babysit him. I remembered being forced to let him win at games to boost his confidence. I remembered becoming his unpaid tutor, chauffeur, and constant cheerleader while receiving none of that support in return. In his memory, all of my sacrifices had been beautified as loving sisterly care. Jacob, we both know we haven't been close in years, I said gently. When was the last time we had a real conversation? We're talking now, aren't we? He sounded genuinely hurt. Look, I know we've drifted apart. That's on me. I've been swamped with work and wedding stuff. But this is a chance for us to reconnect. Elizabeth is dying to meet you. Is she? Or does she just want a complete set of family members for the wedding photos? That's harsh, sis. The next call came from Elizabeth herself, a woman I had never met, but who spoke as if we were already family. Harper, it's Elizabeth Bradford. Well, soon to be Elizabeth Wilson. I just had to call and introduce myself personally. Her voice was pure North Shore privilege. Each word was carefully enunciated in that particular accent. It was the kind of accent that comes from expensive private schools and debutante training. Now, about the wedding, your parents mentioned you're having some trouble with the dates. I have work commitments that I can't reschedule, I explained diplomatically. But surely your boss would understand? It's for your brother's wedding. Family comes first, don't you think? I'm actually the boss, I said, and we have a major product launch that week. Oh, well, couldn't you delegate for just a few days? The Bradfords have always believed that showing up for family is the ultimate sign of character. The implication was clear. My absence would reflect poorly on my character, on my family, and by extension, on her perfect wedding narrative. I'm sorry, Elizabeth. I won't be able to make it. But I wish you both all the happiness in the world. But you're the maid of honor, she exclaimed. I froze. I'm what? The maid of honor, she repeated slowly, as if I might not understand the words. Jacob insisted. He said, you two have always been so close. A wave of anger so intense it momentarily robbed me of speech washed over me. Not once had Jacob or my parents mentioned this detail. They had assigned me a central role in this wedding without even asking me, without even speaking to me for months. Elizabeth, I'm sorry, but that's impossible. No one discussed this with me. But the bridal party dresses are already ordered. We've told the venue that Jacob's sister is the maid of honor, she said, her voice rising slightly. Jacob insisted that she'll definitely do it. She's the kind of person who does whatever the family needs. Everyone's been planning based on that. What am I supposed to do now? I suggest you talk to Jacob and your future in-laws, I said, struggling to keep my voice even, since they're the ones who made promises on my behalf without my knowledge or consent. A week after the initial call, my father phoned again. His voice was no longer cajoling or manipulative. It was cold, authoritative, the voice he used in the courtroom. Harper, this has gone far enough. Your mother is beside herself. Jacob is embarrassed. The Bradfords are beginning to ask questions. You will be on a plane to Chicago next month. You will wear the dress your mother selected. You will perform your duties as sister of the groom and maid of honor without complaint. This is not a request. Or what, Dad? I asked, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Or you can consider yourself cut off from your trust fund, from any inheritance, from this family entirely. Is that really what you want to throw away everything over one weekend? I didn't realize my place in this family was conditional on absolute obedience, I said. Don't be dramatic. This is about responsibility, about being there when your family needs you. Where was that sentiment when I needed you? All those years, all those milestones you missed, all those times I needed my parents and got nothing but empty chairs and excuses? That's ancient history, Harper. This is happening now, and it's important. Important to whom? To Jacob? Or to your business relationship with Thomas Bradford? He made a dismissive sound. You always were stubborn, just like your mother. I'm giving you one last chance to do the right thing. Be at that wedding, or consider yourself disinherited. The word hung between us. Disinherited. Cast out. No longer a Wilson in the ways that mattered to my father. Money, property, social standing. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Is that your final word on the subject? It is, he said firmly. The choice is yours. Then I've made my decision, I said. I won't be attending the wedding. And you can keep your money, your property, and your approval. I don't need any of it anymore. You're making a terrible mistake, he warned. One you'll regret for the rest of your life. No, Dad. For the first time, I'm not making a mistake. I'm choosing myself over the role you want me to play. And that's a choice I'll never regret. He hung up without another word. The morning after my father's ultimatum, I received a text from my childhood friend Megan. She still lived in Chicago. Just heard the craziest rumor at the country club. Your mom told everyone you couldn't attend Jacob's wedding because you're doing humanitarian work in Africa. Apparently you're building schools or vaccinating children or something equally noble. Thought you should know what they're saying. I stared at the message. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in my throat. Africa. They couldn't even be bothered to create a believable lie. But then, something happened that changed everything. The next week, my department VP called again. Harper, I have incredible news. Your innovative approach to user experience design has caught the attention of the industry. Forbes wants to feature you as one of their notable tech leaders under 35. Forbes? I gasped. That's not all. Your annual compensation package, including stock options, now exceeds $7 million. You're literally one of our most valuable young executives. After hanging up, I sat down, trying to process the numbers. $7 million per year. Suddenly, a cold, calculating thought occurred to me. I opened my laptop and began online searches. Chicago real estate records, public salary information, corporate earnings reports. An hour later, I called my father. "Harper," he answered, his voice tense. "Have you reconsidered your decision?" "Actually, Dad, I wanted to tell you something. I just confirmed my annual compensation. And I make $7 million a year," I said quietly, "including stock options. That's more than all the partners at your law firm combined. 4 times Mom's surgeon salary. About 100 times Jacob's resident salary." Complete silence on the other end of the phone. "So, Dad," I continued, "while you're threatening to disinherit me, I actually make more money than all of you combined." "What did you just say?" My father's voice was barely audible. "I said I make more money than all of you combined." I repeated more calmly. "My base salary is 7 figures. My stock options are worth millions. I own my home outright. I have investments, savings, and enough financial security to last several lifetimes. Dad, I don't need your money. I never did. What I needed was your love. But I finally accepted that's something you can't or won't give me." The silence stretched between us, heavy with 3 decades of misunderstanding and pain. "I have to go," he said finally. "We'll discuss this another time." "No, we won't," I said. "I've said everything I needed to say. The rest is up to you." He hung up without another word. The day after my confrontation with my father, my phone remained silent. I went to work, led a productive design review, and had dinner with friends as if my entire family paradigm hadn't just imploded. The silence lasted exactly 48 hours. Then my mother called. "Harper, do you have a moment to talk?" Her voice didn't have its usual authoritative tone. Rather, it was careful, as if she was walking through a minefield. "I'm listening," I said, bracing myself for another guilt trip or manipulation attempt. "Your father told me about your conversation," she said slowly. "About your financial situation. Of course, money was the only thing that could change the power dynamic in our family." "Yes," I confirmed. "I'm doing very well professionally." There was a long silence. "Harper, we may have missed a lot of things." It was the closest thing to an apology, but still not quite there. For the first time in my adult life, my mother asked me questions about my work, my life, my accomplishments. She listened as I described my role, my team, my vision for the products we created. She asked follow-up questions that showed she was actually paying attention. When I mentioned my house, she asked to see photos. She exclaimed appropriately over the view and the architecture. "Harper," she said when I finished, "I don't know what to say. You've built an impressive life for yourself." "Yes," I agreed. "I have. I wish we had paid more attention," she said, her voice catching slightly. "I think perhaps we didn't know how to relate to you. You were always so independent, so capable." "I had to be," I said simply. "No one else was going to take care of me." Another long pause. "About the wedding," she began. "My decision hasn't changed," I said firmly. "I understand," she said, surprising me again. "I just wanted you to know that we've adjusted the wedding party. Your cousin Ellison will be the maid of honor now." "She's a good choice," I said. She and Jacob were always close. A few days later, Jacob called again, this time without the artificial cheer. "So," he said, "Director of User Experience, huh? That sounds important." "It is," I confirmed. "Dad's been weird since your phone call. Like, really quiet. Mom's been asking all these questions about whether he ever attended any of your college events." I said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "I've been thinking about what you said," he admitted, "about us not being close, about Mom and Dad favoring me. I always thought it was the opposite, that you were the smart one they were proud of, and I was just the kid they had to push to keep up." "That wasn't my experience," I said carefully. "Yeah, I'm starting to get that," he sighed heavily. "Look, I'm sorry about the Maid of Honor thing. That was my fault. I just assumed you do it because you always did whatever the family needed. I never considered you might have your own life that was more important." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever received from my brother. Not perfect, still centered on his perspective, but genuine in its way. "I hope your wedding is everything you want it to be," I said sincerely, "and I hope Elizabeth makes you happy." "Thanks," he said. "I wish you could meet her. She's actually really cool when she's not stressing about the wedding. Maybe sometime after. We could visit you in Seattle? See this fancy house of yours." "I'd consider that," I said, "if you're serious about wanting to build a real relationship." "I think I am," he said, sounding somewhat surprised at himself. The most dramatic shift came just before Christmas when my mother called with an unexpected question. "Harper, your father and I were wondering if you might consider joining us for the holidays this year. We could come to Seattle if that would be easier for you." I was momentarily speechless. In all my years, my parents had never offered to travel to me. "You would come here?" I finally managed. "If you'd have us," she said. "We'd like to see your home, meet these friends we've heard so much about, get to know your life there." I agreed, partly out of curiosity, partly from a cautious hope that this represented a genuine desire for change. The 3-day visit wasn't without its awkward moments and old patterns trying to reassert themselves. My mother still occasionally slipped into giving unsolicited advice. My father still struggled to show emotion. But there were new moments too. My father asking thoughtful questions about my work. My mother genuinely connecting with my friends over Christmas dinner. Both of them playing with Luna in the backyard, looking more relaxed than I could remember seeing them. On their final evening, as we sat by the fireplace with glasses of wine, my father cleared his throat. "Harper," he said, still avoiding looking directly at me, "your story has been thought-provoking." I waited, hardly daring to breathe. "We should have probably paid more attention to you," he said carefully. "You were always handling things yourself, so we assumed we may have assumed you didn't need us." It wasn't quite an apology. There was no acknowledgement of responsibility, no real reflection on the pain caused. But for my father, it was still a significant concession. "Going forward, I'd like to try harder," he added. "If you want that." I answered carefully. "Let's see how it goes, Dad. But you need to understand that we can't go back to the same relationship as before." He nodded. Whether he truly understood was unclear, but it was a beginning. As I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. 6 months ago, I had felt invisible to my own family, a peripheral character in their story. Now, through standing firm in my truth and my worth, I had begun to rewrite that narrative, not by changing who I was to fit their expectations, but by being so unapologetically myself that they had no choice but to see me clearly at last. The road ahead would not be perfect. Old wounds don't heal overnight. Lifelong patterns don't transform in an instant. There would be setbacks and disappointments along the way. But for the first time, I felt hopeful that a new kind of relationship might be possible. One based on mutual respect rather than obligation and pretense. Looking at the life I had built around me, I saw my beautiful house overlooking the Sound, friends who truly loved me, Luna sleeping peacefully at my feet, the innovative project I would present at tomorrow's meeting. All of this achieved through my own power, my own choices. Whether my family changed or not was no longer a condition for my happiness. If they wanted a true relationship, it was their turn to make the effort now. I would no longer wait. I would no longer beg. I would simply continue living my rich life, authentically myself. For the first time, I felt that was not just enough, but more than enough. In fact, this was a more wonderful life than I could have ever dreamed. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family expectations and your own well-being? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose themselves sometimes. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, your worth isn't determined by how others see you, but by how clearly you see yourself.